I picked him at
All right.
Waco. I picked him up there,
63
and
and
I didn't know who
63,
he
right?
was. What are you gonna do, Neely?
Was it in
Are-
1963?
What year was that? Chris is asking.
Neely was
19.
born in 1963.
So 63.
And she was, so it
2
was,
She
months
was,
old. She was
she
born
was
in
2 months
April.
old, I think.
So
It
she
was the
would
time when they killed
have been
Kennedy.
April, May, June. And he
It
didn't,
was
he
it
didn't
was the it
November.
was a few weeks before they killed Kennedy.
No, you picked him up? No, she wouldn't have been 2 months old, Niky. She's born in April. So April, May, June. It would have been in June when you picked him up.
But then in June, I said it was 2 months.
But you said it was 2 weeks before he killed Kennedy. It wasn't 2 weeks before.
It was just a week or so, or 2 weeks before Kennedy was killed. I remember
Well,
because
that's in November. In November, October, November.
Yeah.
well, maybe that's when it was then. Because
November.
yeah, we went November. Boy, that month November.
November 11th.
Because I know
Yeah.
we went to see my uncle George, and then we left Neely maybe with Mazzy, and then I don't know, maybe we took her. I don't remember anymore. But on the way back to Dallas, when we were living there, you know, in Waco, in Waco,
Waco.
I I
Waco,
never,
yeah, she picked him up
yeah,
in
I
Waco.
never forgot this place. It had a KK, you know, Kai. It was a cafe called KK. And I said, KKK. In Greek, KK
Oh, it's
means,
those campgrounds, the KAI
Oh,
campgrounds.
campgrounds, yeah.
KOA.
KOA.
no, it was KAI. Two times.
KAI.
Two times KAI. It was a cafe there. And we went in to have a coffee with the baby and my mother and I. We stopped, and as we were coming out, there were a few guys there holding their SMU. He kept saying SMU. They had some music boxes or whatever. And this guy, you know, he sort of looked like you a little bit, you know, Chris. You, Chris, not Chris Hazelwood. What's your last name, Chris?
What's your last name?
Cole. Cole.
Col what?
Cole. Cole.
Cole. Are you Anglo-Saxon? Nat King Cole. You are not
Yes.
relative to Nat King Cole, are you?
He's Anglo-Saxon, right? Yeah.
I hope I have some Nat King Cole here in me.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Boy, you have a really nice voice, some very unusual voice.
Thank you.
You have a very strong, very positive tone in your voice. Maybe, you know, I think I should start becoming this Pythia woman that was sitting on a tripod, because I'm just picking now on the young people that I see around me. I pick their voice, I pick their bodies, I pick their face, I pick their vibes. You know, it's interesting what I'm turning into. In any
That is
case,
very interesting.
and and uh, and then and then he had this guy that it was Oswald. You know, it's because I didn't know he had a big basso, you know, a big thing that you know, what do they call those big guitar? Not guitar. Natalie, what was this professor that you used to buy? You used to come, Natalie.
Cello. The cello.
The cello
Yeah.
guy. Remember that cello professor that used to come, Natalie? It was Natalie's, he was Natalie's
Customer. Yeah.
client.
Yeah.
He used to really like Natalie, this guy, but not this guy that we picked up. No, we had the real professor there that had an original cello. One of those, what did they call those cellos? The the ancient, the ones with the brand. Any case, but this guy, this Oswald, had a big cello, uh, you know, cello case,
Yeah.
and it
Case.
had on SMU. So I told him, and he was hitchhiking. So in those days, hitchhike was not, you know, a terrible thing. I mean, it was you had to be cautious. I always was cautious, but it was not something like it happened afterwards that you picked up somebody and then you never knew where, where you will end. So I told my mother, I said, shall we pick him up? You know, he was going to Dallas. And I told my mother, shall we pick him up? And my mother said, okay. So I said, look, take the baby and sit in the back seat. And because my mother was a strong woman, I said, and I'm going to have him sit in front with me. And if you see him move kind of funny, beat the head out of him from the back seat, you know, start beating his head sign down. So, so she did. So I told him, if you want to have a ride in Dallas, you can come with us if you want. And I said, but the cello goes in the back, in the trunk. I said, it doesn't go in the car. So we put the cello. Well, we dropped him, you know, in Camp Wisdom. Do you know where Dallas is?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I
You
used
know,
to live there.
Camp Wisdom was where he lived, you know, and I lived not far from there, you know. So I told him, where do you want me to take you? He said, that's fine over here. You can drop me to the 7-Eleven. There was a 7-Eleven or something over there. So I dropped him there, and then we went to the house, and that was that, you know, bye-bye, bye-bye. On the way, you know, I started somehow talking about communists, you know, and I was saying, you know, how terrible they were. Of course, I was not so um, I was not so knowledged, you know, knowledge in the communistic regime or anything. But I did not like communists at all since I was a child. I mean, since I was growing up, because in our house we had the picture of a king, and we were loyalists to the king, you know, in our family. And until today, I prefer the kings than I prefer anybody else. Maybe it's because in my grandfather was a Comnen. I don't know if you know who the Comnens are, Chris. Do you know?
I do not know.
The Comnens are the emperors of the Byzantine Empire, and
Okay.
my mother is a descendant of those emperors of the Byzantine Empire, because her father was a Comnen. So he was born and raised in Smyrni. Izmir today in Turkish, but Smyrni in those days. He came to Alexandria, and because he was a Comnen and he had money, my great-grandparents married my grandmother, their daughter, to him, because in those days they used to marry, you know, rich with rich people, aristocracy, you know, with aristocracy, whatever you call it. In any case, they had the distinction. So in any case, so after we went to the house, and a few days later, you know, we had of course we had the television on. Neely was, yeah, but she must have been 5, 6 months old, I think, something like that. And it was November when Kennedy died.
Yes.
Man,
Yes.
Yes.
I did not realize that. Poor thing. You remember what date it was?
November 11th.
Really? That
Yes.
11 is something else. I don't know why they pick this number 11, like 9/11. You know, that's what, if you take it in the difference.
November 11th is 11/11.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was scheduled to go see Johnny Cash. He was playing in Temple, and they canceled it because Kennedy was shot. I was living in Temple at the time.
He was shot on 11/23.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
11/23, Kennedy.
11/23.
All right. I'm
Stephen King
mistaken.
wrote a book about it, 11/23/63.
Yeah.
He wrote a novel. I bought that book.
What was it?
11.
Kennedy was killed on November 23rd, 1963.
11/23. In any case, so then we were looking, and then all of a sudden I was preparing to do a something with it was some kind of an event with daughters of Penelope, which is the Greeks, the women of the Greeks of the States, you know, the American Greeks, the female. And as I was talking to a girl, on the phone what were we gonna do and what was I gonna do. All of a sudden she said, "Stop, Niky, stop! They just shot Kennedy." She said. I said, "What?" So she ran down and checked it to her television, whatever it was, and she came back and she told me, let's stop because that just shot Kennedy and put on your television." So I just put on my television. A few hours later, you know that we were watching the event of Kennedy's assassination. I think how many hours later was it when they caught him? They caught Oswald. I don't know. They showed Oswald that they picked him up and they were bringing him into the jail. And as they were bringing him in, my mother said, "This is the guy that we picked up on the way." I said, "Are you sure?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Be quiet, don't you open your mouth. We don't want to hear everybody to come gather over here and have a problem, a situation." I said, "Just forget about it. Forget it, forget it, forget it. Don't even talk about it." And that's how, we knew it was Oswald that we picked, because my mother recognized him. I mean, I didn't even recognize him very well because he was sitting, right next to me. But my mother was watching him just in case he was going to get she was making sure that he wasn't going to attack us or anything. So she was really having her eyes on him. But in any case, that was kind of bizarre, don't you think?
Yeah, so what was in the cello case? The gun?
Probably that's what he had. I don't know. But he did not shoot him. It was not he who shot. It was the mafia that did with that faggot Hoover that I can't stand. And I don't understand why we have this. He was. I am not against gay people, but this Hoover was horrible, horrible. He was a horrible person. He even ordered to kill Marilyn Monroe. I mean, he was a horrible, horrible, horrible. Huh? Yeah, he ordered to kill Marilyn Monroe. He did it. He was a terrible, terrible human being. Terrible. And I don't know why. I saw the other day the FBI building in the States a couple of months ago when I was had the television, and they showed, the FBI building in Washington, D.C., and they still have his name on it. He is a disgrace to the United States of America, this Hoover. And they still have his name
Really?
on the marble walls.
Yeah.
Hoover, damn Hoover, damn, and Hoover everything. That guy, can stand him. I mean, he gives me the creeps. Hello, were you picking me up on a hi-fi, Neely?
Yeah, you want me to turn off the record?
No, record. It's good.
Recording,
Record,
okay.
record, record. Let it
Hey,
record.
that's my
The other
breast.
day,
Oh, sorry.
you girls, you girls. I want to get. You know what somebody said the other day when they saw you two girls with me? They said, "Oh, all three of you look like each other." What was it? It was something you showed to somebody, Neely, and they said the three of you look exactly like each other. That the three of us. Where is Chris?
He's over there playing with his phone.
Chris, where are
He's playing with
you?
his phone.
I used to play something else, but now it's his phone.
He used to play the fiddle, and now he plays his phone.
Yeah. You remember the days that you used to go and open up his and get in his bedroom, and then he got so upset at you, and then he took off the knobs from his door, and I came up
Yes.
to see, and he had the knobs off the door, and he had a big hole there. Well, I'm sure I cannot a lot of banistiri, you girls. Banistiri. Banistiri, you know
We
what it
didn't
is?
watch, we didn't watch that.
Banistiri, you know what this is?
Oh, you're so happy. You're so happy. His smile is ear to ear.
We had
Christaki,
another-
All your husband being around them.
did you do your
Bear.
Christaki,
Bear?
Christaki,